Still technically 3. All right. All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the regular meeting of the City of Erie Environmental Advisory Council. Let the record show we're starting at 3:01 today. First item on the agenda is a roll call. Campbell? Here. Howden? Here. Kerr is not here. Sorry, Curry? Yeah. Lupo? Here. Mason? Here. Puz here. Tepfer? Here. Associate members, Tarvin?
Is absent.
Yeah. Walmsley? Here. Buddikin? All right. Director Spry?
Here.
Moore? Peelman?
Here.
All right. Before we continue, are there any changes to the agenda? If not, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Next item on the agenda, approval of the April 2025 meeting minutes. Are there any corrections, changes, et cetera? If not, is there any motion to approve the minutes as presented?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Next item on the agenda, public comment. Any public comment? Comments from the public?
There is no public.
All right. With that, seeing none, I will move on to the next item. New business. First item under new business, the Erie Waterworks, Craig Palmer, Chief Executive Officer.
Hello. Thanks for having me today. And I understand that part of the reason is I know this council is kind of newer and tackling some issues, and that there's been kind of a growing community interest in reducing plastic waste, particularly at large events. And we're very interested in doing the same. We're kind of on a crusade, me personally, against bottled water. I know others may be interested in that as well. But we recognize over 60 million plastic bottles are thrown away daily. Less than 15% is recycled, I believe. And so we're very interested in promoting tap water. Erie tap water is terrific, and part of my new role as CEO is to do more public outreach, education events, things like that, and we really started to do a lot of that last year. And we're interested in larger scale distribution of water, particularly at events. And so there has been a lot of talk about it. Last year we did some due diligence and are ramping that up right now. And so there are lots of examples across the country that kind of do this already, some of which I have contacts with, and I'll get into that a little bit. But what we've done so far is to kind of tackle some smaller scale events. We do have 4 10-gallon coolers that dispense and 6 5-gallon coolers. We did do a number of events, and the picture that I kind of show, we have these dispensers on carts, so you can actually move them around. And these are just small 5-gallon ones that we had at Erie County Technical School for an event called Diggers and Dumpers. And there was a couple thousand kids there. Of course, everybody didn't get a drink of water, right? So So we had them, and we've been able to kind of do that at a few more events this year as well. So again, we were at, I think, Iroquois Elementary last week for an event, and we're doing some more outreach. So the question then is, what about at bigger events like Celebrate Erie, for example, or things like that? And so we have talked to a number of companies and plan to talk to more about what these units might look like. And there's different kinds. There's kinds that, and you could pass that around, that's an example. Quench Buggy is a vendor that I'm actually getting pricing for a rental unit right now, potentially exploring let's kind of try this out before we make some type of larger investment. We are interested and actually worked with Dr. Mason on grant application, EPA change grant. I doubt that that's coming through. It's frozen, of course. Right, but so we are definitely interested in procuring some form of large-scale distribution mechanism, we'll say. They are not a cheap date. The units, the Quench Buggy that we're looking at, probably in the $65,000 to $70,000 range. Some have tanks and you use it and that's it. Some you can have a water supply to it. And I know just walking around the square here for the Rib Fest that there are definitely areas that could supply that and then be used to dispense from there. So I think it's definitely doable. In the broader scheme of things, we need to kind of look at some of the parameters. For one, we need to understand what this program might look like. What type of frequency might we do this? What type of event? How often? And the resource requirements. We have to maintain it, keep it clean, properly fill, dispense it. Things like that that we have to consider, and what terms might be associated with doing something like that. So we're looking at talking to those in the industry who have done it. Really trying to find out how they run their programs. So I've reached out to Cleveland Water, Denver Water. There was one that Freda shared, Dunham. I know Connecticut does it, and then I met an individual at a conference in D.C. last month, and they're from Suffolk County outside of New York City. They have a program. So I've reached out to all of them to try to get their point people to really find out about the plans, compare, take a look at how people do it, how they, do they pay their employees, do they do comp time? I know that, I've talked to, there's probably some local universities that might have an interest in participation from, college students that might be able to assist. So we're really trying to kind of shake the trees and figure out what that might look like. We would need to add this unit or units to our operating permits with the DEP, which isn't that big a deal, but you need certain things like SOPs and things like that for water hauling and cleaning and all those things. So at this point, we're gathering that information, and I think long term we have to look at how we procure it. Where does the money come from? Is it literally from our revenues for community type events? Is it some type of grant? Could there be a sponsorship opportunity from a large local company or companies maybe? Some branding opportunities, things like that. Certainly I think we really want to get the story out about tap water, so it's not like we don't want to make any investment. We're going to make an investment for sure, because that's part of our plan of public outreach more and more. So that's kind of where we're at. So we're kind of equipped right now to do kind of some smaller events and have started to do that. For the kind of the big, the Celebrate Erie, I think there's about maybe 200,000 5,000 people or so that come through here. So I think it would be really a great opportunity to have a larger scale setup. And so in the meantime, we haven't budgeted really anything for that this year, but I have inquired as to some rental options, starting with the quench buggy that I passed around that I first started talking to last year. So they're getting me some numbers. I don't know what that looks like, but again, I think as we kind of get into this, you kind of want to walk before you start running. So really kind of getting lessons learned from within the industry itself, see how communities handle it, manage the risk, and really just figure out a path forward to doing it. So we're on board, and we like the idea, we like the sustainability of it, we like the promotion of tap water, the reduction of waste, plastics, less trash to take out, less litter to pick up, things like that. I know some entities, when they do this, they don't permit. The utility will only do it if there is no bottled water being sold. So there's lots of different considerations, but you have to be able to support and have it accessible enough if you do something like that. Obviously, you need people to be hydrated. Whether it's one unit, multiple units, there's different types, trailer mounted, not trailer mounted. There's just some specifics to kind of sort through to figure out, what's going to be the best situation for us to kind of implement this successfully. Nobody wants to buy something and go, this didn't work out. We want it to be on point and effective from day one when we hit the go button. So that's, I think, maybe what the intent was, to kind of figure out where we're at with this process and kind of get input from the council and others as to any ideas or thoughts.
No, thank you. That was absolutely the intent. And, I had explained to Craig that we've been talking about this since the beginning, about bottled water, about sustainable containers. And I think there's some momentum here. And we ended our conversation about, what is it that the city can support? How can the EAC support this initiative? I'm interested to hear, when you find out more of the models, is like, where is the restrictions? How have municipalities used their vendor licenses or other things to restrict the selling of water, and how can we emulate that, maybe possibly here in the city? Even if we start out more on like a smaller scale or a piloted project, how do we do that? So I think I'd be interested with a little bit of a follow-up once you hear more about some of those models. And I wrote down a few of Cleveland Water, Denver Water, Suffolk, and Dunham, I think you said were the ones that you were looking at.
Correct, and there's a Connecticut authority that I follow that actively does it as well, and I have some context there. So I've kind of done the reach out and really just need to kind of get the follow-up of who to talk to, and most utilities I've found are willing to share information, kind of like we're all in it together. You've done this before, but we haven't, so, kind of help us. I think it's probably like that with other industries as well. So I anticipate that, I'll get some good information and, we don't want to overcomplicate something. We just want to have as simple a plan as we can that's, it can get the job done. So, I know some have, like Dunham, for example, Freda had a, $2 million insurance requirement from wherever they were going. They needed that. We'll have to look at, that seems pretty, a pretty tall order for example, compared to, I don't know why they would have something like that. So I think, our approach would be to certainly protect our interests but do it in a way that really makes an impact in the community, promotes tap water use. Because quite frankly, let's be honest, there's plenty of individuals in this community who do not trust their tap water, And so part of our mission is to educate them as to why you should trust the tap water. And you know, we meet or exceed all federal and state drinking water regulations, and the current ones, and they're ever changing, and that's true. Well, they're changing, that's for sure. But it's an education thing. You know, the perception is that bottled water is better, and you know, there are 3 reasons in my book why it's not, and it's the economics, it's the environment, and it's the quality. And their regulations are, through the FDA, are different. Their transparency, their consumer reporting is different, their testing requirements. And so from a quality perspective, I believe we're held to a higher standard. Environmentally, I think there's no argument in terms of the plastic waste, and not just the waste, but the end result of microplastics getting into water bodies. And then really the economics, which people don't understand. Our tap water is less than a penny per gallon. It's actually less than 1/7 of a cent per gallon. And the cheapest bottled water you can get is 250 times more expensive. And you know, it goes from there. I mean, that's the cheapest stuff at Sam's Club. And you can buy Fiji water that's 2,500 times more expensive, and people do it every single day. And so, you know, it's part of it is just like, it's an educational opportunity. You know, come here to hydrate, but learn more about what the impact is we're all making as a result of something like that. So
I can't tell you how exciting it is to actually be on the same side of an issue with somebody after years of always struggling. Just a couple things I want to throw in there. So I first got exposed to this kind of thing at the Newport Folk Festival, which is a big folk festival. And I don't know whether they had a quench buggy or what, but it was Clean Canteen, so you might check with them. And also, whenever I hear people mention students, don't forget about the community college students, because we often always look at the university students when we're offering jobs. And another thing is, maybe there could be some kind of requirement associated with building permits for certain kinds of buildings that they have water bottle fillers. Now, you know, that I mean, some places have them, but I don't think they're required to have them. I don't think there is one, for example, at the Warner Theater. There is at the Convention Center, but that would use our city water, but it would also go a long way to making it possible for people to fill their own water bottles.
well, and Fred, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we're actually, and I really don't have anything with me, but we're part of this initiative is we're branding refillable drinking fountains in public spaces. So we've just branded, it's our TAP 814 initiative, and every fountain has a kind of a QR code that educates people about the value proposition of tap water. But we have branded the fountain in our lobby at the Manufacturers Association, and now there are 2 at the Erie International Airport. And so both when you enter and then once you're past security, we're talking with Gannon, would like to talk with the city about doing something with the fountain. And in many cases, there's already a fountain, and we're just doing some education around it, kind of integrating what's great about us and the space we're at, the entity we're at, to kind of, you know, play on the colors, the themes, to make it a cohesive type of thing. But I am talking to Erie events, and so we're talking about branding fountains at all of, well, really the Convention Center, at Erie Insurance Arena, as well as the Warner. And the Warner's a little bit different because there's the historic spaces. So we've, you know, kind of backstage, there's a few fountains we've talked about. At this point, they're a little, I think, there's some concerns about how you integrate something like that into an older space. I'm very interested in putting one in. So, you know, I've been talking to Gus about it. We haven't kind of sealed the deal on moving forward with
But then you
all
also,
those
in any
fountains.
of the
But
area events places, you have to be allowed to bring a fillable water bottle in with you, because there's this whole, I mean, I know with the Warner, you know, there's don't mess up their auditorium, but you can't, you know, the stadium, all these
You're allowed to have
places.
water in there, though. They sell bottled water.
Right, but you can't bring a water bottle.
Not a water bottle.
No,
But you
but-
can take the water that you buy into the
Right, but,
theater.
but you, well, I don't want to belabor that, but there, it sounds like we were on a similar track, but if it was a requirement when you construct certain kinds of facilities, you have to do that, that wouldn't hurt. I mean, maybe there's an opportunity to get into building permit code somewhere.
Yeah, we had to replace the water fountain at the art house, and we did it with the fillable station. And the kids love it. I mean, more of them are bringing, we've always encouraged them to bring their own water bottle, but more of them are bringing it now because they love the idea of going back there and filling their bottle.
yes, and we want to promote that. I mean, way back when there was a school drinking fountain program, and I mean, it died 20 years ago, but part of what this TAP 814 is not only to do the branding, but in some cases where it's permitted to help with acquiring the fountain to make it available. And we're really interested in highly traveled public spaces where that would, you know, all those places. I'm you know, talking with Erie Insurance right now about some opportunities as well. So I think it would be important to engage them as well. They're very interested in sustainability.
I don't think they do.
I do not know that, Freda, but they are on my list. I mean, I think it would be great to be at the Erie Art Museum and, you know, commission an artist to do the design around the fountain and, you know, just to kind of be more in all of those public spaces. And not just the fountain, but something that draws you to it and educates you at the same time.
This is great.
Any questions? I'm open to ideas, input from the council, whatever the case is. And, you know, certainly this isn't a one and done. You know, certainly we'll stay in contact with Jackie and the council as, you know, you see fit.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Certainly.
And maybe in a few, short time, we can have like a little bit of an update.
Sure,
And
absolutely.
see where the council can convene others to listen and see where we can move this forward. That'd be great.
It's good news.
Yes.
Is that good news?
Yeah, very nice. Thank you, Craig.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and you're welcome to stay for the meeting, or you're welcome to, I'm sure you have a lot of things to do.
Unfortunately, I have a few things to finish up
Yeah,
today.
sure.
But,
Thank you.
But thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Jay,
Craig.
Thanks for doing what you're doing.
You can take that little flower
Oh,
with you.
okay. Yes. But yeah, thank you for I think the council's a great thing, and what you're trying to do here is really great. You looked at the bylaws, I looked at, you know, some of the issues you're looking at. I think it's really great, so thank you. Okay.
Thank you. All right.
I agree.
Yes, thank you again. Appreciate the presentation. All right, next item under new business, we have Shell Insight Conference.
Yes, I asked that this be put on the agenda. There's a small committee of us that for the past couple of years have this, this is part of the Marcellus Shale Coalition that comes to Erie for the past couple of years and has their big conference down at the Erie Convention Center. And we would like the support of the council in asking the mayor and state reps to turn down any invitations they have to speak. And the mayor did do that last year because we don't think that this should be supported. And this is more than just Pennsylvania. We work closely with groups in Ohio also. So that's the one issue, is to convince our local government agencies to turn down any invitations to speak at the convention. The other issue is to get a determination of public access. Last year, when we were demonstrating at that convention, we were told that we did not have access to the sidewalk around the convention center. And we did not have time to pursue that with the city, but our understanding is that that is all public access. So we should be able to stand anywhere outside of the doors and not 200 or 300 feet down the sidewalk. So those are the two issues that we would like the advisory council to put before the, I guess, the mayor's office and to support.
What entity would be in charge of enforcing the public access?
Well, according to the police that were guarding, and that was the other thing, they had 8 to 10 police cars.
What kind of city police?
City police, and then there were like convention police, I don't know who they were. But there were city police there for 30 or 40 protesters. I mean, it was way overkill. And I don't understand, the thought behind it, but anyways. But both the city police and I guess the guards, they wear those uniforms, they were the ones that told us. And when we were back for the evening thing, it was basically 30 probably elderly nuns. It was pouring rain, and they would not, I said, these are old people. Can't they come and stand under and be protected from the, no. You are not. This is public access. This is a private event. This is a private event. You are not allowed public access. And we weren't asking to go in the building. It was the sidewalk around the building.
I walk there all the time, and I've walked.
Yeah, but you're not there
I know, but I've walked by weddings, I walk by all kinds of things that are going on, even outside in that courtyard. I'm just. in your
Yeah,
defense.
I'm wondering if they do it for anything besides something that they consider political.
But one other comment I want to make, since I'm not opposed to what you're asking, but since you're asking this body to take a position that you clearly state the reasons.
Okay, and we can do that. I wanted to bring it up to see if you were open to it, and we will draw up something for you, but those are the
What's
two
the
issues.
timing?
It's not till September, so we have a lot of time. It's September 16th through the 18th.
Sister Pat, do you know, have you had to get permits in the past for if you're going to stage a protest on public access?
We've
No.
had
No,
protests.
You can get one, though. I think that might help.
If you're using the
Have
roads,
access.
pardon?
That might give you proof you need, though, to be allowed to have the access. And I guess it'd be from Mr. Rocco, I think, but
My friend.
because if it's public property.
As opposed to your
Because
events.
someone has to decide if the sidewalk's really public property, public access, or is it all private property?
And is it Erie Events or is it Port Authority?
Exactly.
And I know the county actually helped pay.
Matt, jump in.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in.
Matt, jump in.
I'm going to splash into this.
Ooh,
So if I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, the zoning ordinance, I think it's section 306, waterfront conditional use, requires,
Slow down a little more distinctly, my ears aren't working.
okay, the zoning ordinance, and I believe it's section 306 of the zoning ordinance, specifically states that any property that abuts the waterfront area is required to provide a 15-foot public access walkway.
Yeah, I recall that.
Yes. With that being said, it's not abutting, so, so it's on the other side.
The entrance.
yeah, but the property itself abuts the water.
Right,
But
where
the-
they were was
The
the
building.
entrance of the convention.
Okay, but the access is around the
Yes,
water's
correct.
edge.
The public access is around the
Yeah.
water's
Okay, but
edge.
we were wanting to
Yes.
stand along the water. That sidewalk goes along the water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
up to the
Next
door,
to
so
the
we were
That
still.
is where they wanted to stand.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so it's next to the.
That's
convention.
public,
Yeah.
that's,
We also are getting some votes, though.
yeah. The other thing, I guess, would be that that property's actually, I would think would be owned by the convention center, so it's not technically public property, even though it's a public.
The county helped pay for it, by the way.
Yeah, so, but I guess my point here is that the access, there's a 15-foot required access along the bay for all properties.
So we could potentially get proof, find out from zoning exactly where the public access is that you're allowed to stand on.
It's the
protest.
sidewalk. It's the perimeter sidewalk. That, there was,
Just
there was,
along
this
the
was a
water's
very
edge.
contentious issue during the building of this
Right.
development. And if you remember Sons of Lake
Right.
Erie,
Yes.
you know, this was this whole issue, and that's why there's
But I
been
mean,
a-
does the awning go over some of that
That-
15
those-
feet or
that's-
not?
that's
Like, we'll have
not-
to look and see.
No, the awning and the sidewalk that go into the convention center are separate from the access
Sidewalk?
sidewalk. Yes, those
Okay.
are two separate.
And their argument was that it was a private event, so they were allowed to restrict public access.
Interesting.
They're not, they wouldn't, I don't think they'd be allowed to restrict the public access on the water, on the
Doesn't that
sidewalk.
sound ridiculous?
Because that would involve
Only their
restricting
private
all,
sidewalk.
you know, if there was a jogger who came running by, you'd have to tell them, hey, no, this is public access. You know, but restricting it.
And Sister Pat, did you want to make a motion today to ask?
Why don't I
the
get something
EAC?
written up for you
Yeah.
all?
Okay.
We need
Okay,
to- we
and
need to
I'll
have
bring
a
it to the
reason.
next meeting. Okay, but who do you think owns that? Is it Erie Events? Is it the Port Authority?
I would think one of the two,
It's
with,
the Erie Events, it's the Erie Convention Center Authority owns all of that property. That's 12, it's the hotel, the convention center, the existing land that GAF was on is all owned by the Erie Convention Center.
Which is somehow a state-related entity, although the county did finance most of the construction.
Okay, so it's the Erie Convention Center, not Erie Events.
Well, they're both,
They're
that's
both
the
the
same
same.
thing.
They're the
Yeah,
same,
Erie-
okay.
Erie Events is just the.
Okay, that's what I
yeah.
thought, okay.
I don't know, it's like the name of the tag name.
You might want to look at who's on the board.
Okay. All right, thank you, and I'll come back with that for the next meeting.
I'm sorry, I'm just gonna get back.
And I
I'm
might
sorry.
get back to you about the permit thing. Can I get back to you?
But that's what I was thinking, it can, so since it is technically private property, can somebody issue a permit to,
It would only be a permit to be on the public
Mm-hmm.
sidewalk.
okay.
But why do we need a
Erie Events is
permit for public
entity.
access?
It's not a
You
private
don't
entity.
need
Protesting.
a permit, but the
But it's still
permit
private
gives
property.
you paperwork
I know it's
saying
owned
you're
by-
really allowed to be
It's our
there.
Oh,
property.
okay.
It's a public
One,
entity.
it's hard to hear for the public, so one at a time, please.
Yeah, you don't have to get a permit to have a public protest, but if you do, then you have a paper to show people that says you really are allowed to be there on the public access sidewalk as proof. But you're not required to get one, but it just gives you more leverage if people are trying to tell you you can't be there, the permit says you can. It just more clearly spells it out. And then what were you saying, Freda?
It's not a private property, it's a public
but
property.
you can still restrict access to it, like, City Hall, you can't go to the second floor without.
But
being granted.
you couldn't restrict access to the sidewalk.
No, I'm not saying that, no.
I go in there all the time because you are allowed to use the the bridge, when there's well, now that there's that hotel open. Anyway, I enter the building often when I'm walking over the bridge.
Yeah, that's a good point. What is the access about that bridge? Because is it only for fishermen that are guaranteed that access, or is it all pedestrians?
No,
We could access the.
Because you
Matt,
have to go into
in
the
interest
hotel to
of
use the
time,
bridge.
I would like, if you don't mind, we'll get back to all of that, we'll get answers to the questions. I do want to make an amendment to the new business, if you don't mind. I'm so sorry. Because Erin Carey, it's her first meeting, and I wanted to introduce her officially as your newest appointed member of the EAC. So welcome, Erin Carey. And Erin, if you wouldn't mind just giving a few sentences, a small description of like how you align with the EAC, with the work that you're doing with groundwork, that'd be really appreciative. And anything else that you'd like to add. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the appointment. Happy to be here. So I'm Erin Carey. I'm the Executive Director of Groundwork Erie. So Erin Kerr was previously Director. I took over in September, and we are in the process of hiring 25 high school students for the summertime to do environmental projects in the city. And all of our projects are focused in environmental justice areas, so areas with low tree canopy, higher health hazards due to environmental concerns, and are picking up a lot of plastic water bottles. We do a lot of litter pickups. We've already picked up a lot of plastic water bottles. And I'm trying to think what else we're working on this year. Some urban agriculture projects, tree planting, all the things that I think this committee is thinking about and talking about. Previously, I worked for the city in the planning department, so I'm coming with a background in planning and community engagement. So I'm hoping to bring some skills and insight to the committee. But thanks for having me. Anything else?
No,
Okay.
So are
Thank
you
you.
on here as Erin Carey, or is Erin Carey head of groundwork?
Aaron Kerr.
I'm not here as Erin Kerr.
Yeah, she's replacing Aaron Kerr's
Yeah.
position though, right?
Well, I don't think it's like a organizational appointment or anything.
Right, well,
so.
because the way you said it, that's.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm coming with that
Right.
organizational background.
Right,
So,
okay,
yeah.
just.
Welcome.
Thanks. Yeah, happy to be here.
And Erin Carey is fulfilling the appointment that Erin Kerr had till 2027. So that's where you'll be seated till.
All right. Anything else on the Shell Insight Conference before we continue? All right. Moving on to old business. First item on the agenda is the subcommittee update. So we currently have two subcommittees. We'll do the plastic bag ban. I'm gonna call it the initiative.
Okay,
So,
sounds good. So we had a meeting 2 weeks ago, as y'all probably remember. We're meeting monthly, but alternate to when the EAC meets. Jenna and Molly were on vacation, so they were not in attendance, but we managed to muddle through without them. That's okay. So we met and we looked at, I put together, we had discussed as a group a questionnaire, which I created a hard copy version for when we're going and talking with people, so we have a common set of questions. And then the idea was also that we wanted to get some data. We were a little concerned on whether people would have that data about their usage of the items that we're looking to restrict usage of. We were looking to get information on those, so we created a Google form for people to go in and provide that information. At our next meeting, we'll be talking about the fact that there's two, and I'm a little concerned about whether or not we'll get any data, but it would really be nice to get an idea of how much usage. So just to remind everybody that we're, the ban is focused on the outset, all of this is open for discussion, on single-use plastic bags, on polystyrene takeout containers, like the clamshells and coffee cups, and on utensils, which include straws.
So it's not styrofoam,
Styrofoam is
it's polystyrene. So you don't-
Polystyrene is the scientific term. Styrofoam is a trademarked name, so we cannot publicly refer to it
It's
as
like
styrofoam
Kleenex and
unless we want to get sued by Dow Chemical.
So what about the clear clamshells? They're not included?
Any polystyrene, which oftentimes there are also, so it's, I think it is actually focused on expanded polystyrene, but that's a point that we can So it is more like the styrofoam as opposed to the hard plastic clamshells, which also tend to be made out of polystyrene, but not expanded polystyrene. So that's one of the things that as a committee we could change the language within the sample ordinance to be polystyrene containers, takeout containers, and that would also include like the red Solo cups, which now come in every color of the rainbow, but those are also polystyrene.
The polystyrene's number 6.
Yeah.
Because a lot of
Anything
the
that has
clear
6.
clamshells are like a 5.
Some of them are 6s, and some
Yeah,
of them
it
can
just
be other
depends.
things. It just depends. Yeah, so we're looking
Yeah.
at anything that's
Because
labeled
you're
with the
looking
number
at foamed
6.
versus non-foamed, is what you're talking about. But
Yeah,
maybe-
that's what
Yeah.
Greta was asking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, because,
So-
I know you can, one could replace some of those with something with a
something that-
window.
Yeah, yeah. So we were trying to get, we figured as we were going around, especially if we're talking to food service industries, but even like, Meals on Wheels, to get an idea of how much they're using these products. And we also thought that by asking them not only about how many they use, but how much they're spending on that usage, that might actually help them to kind of become more aware of, oh, we could save this money. So it might actually kind of, by asking the question, not only get us data, but also help to provide support for the ordinance. So we're working on those questionnaires, and I sent around versions, so at our next meeting we'll be talking more about that. We also had collected data from Varun and I had worked on a 2-year study looking in storm drains, litter booms, and street sweepers, and counting all of that debris. And then Molly went out and got Alliance for the Great Lakes data from International Coastal Cleanup kind of data for 2 years, and I pulled that data together and summed it, and then used that data to create a one-pager, which I also sent around to get some feedback from, so we'll be talking about that at our next meeting as well. Interestingly, between those 3 items, that represents 16% of all macro litter that's collected in the city of Erie, is those 3 items that we're looking to curtail. That, obviously big macro items break down to microplastics. Microplastics represent 35% of all the litter that's collected. And so that's the data that's in the one pager, is that 16%. Oh, that's it.
Pass it around.
That's okay. So this is what I put together. So 16%. These big items represent 16% of the macro litter, and then these break down into microplastics, which represent 13% of all litter. And then I brought up the fact that, all of this contributes to the 10,000 tons that are estimated to emit into the Great Lakes every year from a study that was done by Matt Hoffman out of RIT. And then I don't know really what we're putting in this box. I just put something there so it wasn't blank.
So where's this going, going to go?
So the idea is that as we go around and we're talking with people, that we can hand this to them. Because we're assuming that, there's a lot of, we were just talking about this yesterday. Like, all of this data is in my head, but apparently not everybody knows what's in my head.
And that's a good
I
thing.
know, which largely is probably a good thing.
We'll pass it around, Sam, so people can look at it.
Yeah, pass it around. So we were putting together a one-pager. So all of this is, we're trying to build up to the point where we're actually going around and talking with people. Jenna was working on a list along with Alan Swagonski. And then at our last meeting, Matt brought up that he had spoken to Jasmine Flores at the City Council. She was open to us presenting at a City Council meeting. Has that been decided when or where?
No, not yet.
Okay. And expressed concerns about enforcement, which is always the question. So, once you put in the ordinance, how is it enforced? So at our last meeting, Matt and Alan were both going to separately reach out to other communities that have done this or other people that have done this and learn, kind of like what Craig was just saying, how did y'all go about enforcing this? So we're trying to pull this study together with the idea of maybe in June that we're actually starting to go out and talk with people. We've also had John Vanko has offered to join our working group as another concerned community member.
He's been talking about it for a long time.
And I feel like there was one other person, but I forget.
I have a question. I was unaware until somebody came to look at my washing machine or my drains or something and said, oh, you should put a thing on where the water comes out of your washing machine to catch the stuff. So how much difference? I'm not probably the only person who didn't know that and didn't have one of those on there. And how much difference would that make if more people had those?
Washing machine filters are fairly new technology.
This is just a hand thing. You can buy them in the hardware store, but you put it on the thing that goes into the outside drain. It's not on the machine itself.
Right, it goes in, it's the washing machine drainage that's going out.
That goes into
Yeah, those are still fairly new.
Right.
And I don't know about the one that you're specifically talking about. Cleaner is probably one of the better ones. It was actually created by students at Case Western University. It's about $250 to buy it, and it's external to your washing machine. But they're pretty new technology. What kind of impact? It would be tremendous impact, and there's been an interest in the field to get industry to that it becomes a requirement that all washing machines have a filter the same way dryers do that you can empty. But we're working towards that. But you can buy.
It would make sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah, there's a single garment, synthetic garment, sheds on average 15,000 microfibers every time it's washed. So a single kind of load of in your washing, and 75% of garments are now synthetic because natural fibers are becoming
Harder to find.
Unless you're a snob about it.
So you have millions of microfibers that are being released into sewage every day.
But probably even the one I have, which was just an outside thing, kind of like a nylon sock, but it's not, that I put, with a twist tie thing. And I it's more,
It's
but
like an aftermarket thing.
Yeah, I
It's a
get
cheaper
it at
version,
the
I'm sure.
hardware store, but I just wondered if
I
those
can't
have
even
got.
get to my drain, so something like that wouldn't work for me.
Yeah.
So that's why there's different kind of contraptions
Right,
for
but
different
it can't,
situations.
I just wondered if it'd be better than not doing it.
Yes, of
And it's
course.
certainly better for my plumbing, apparently.
Yeah, probably. Sorry, we got off topic. But
Right.
that's my subcommittee update, so we'll be meeting again in 2 weeks. And hopefully in June, we're starting to go out and talk with people.
Thank you. Next update would be the Dark Sky Initiative.
Who's in charge?
Mike, do you want
Mike?
to give an update
I
on?
would ask Jackie just to go ahead. She had a lot more initiative in leading the charge this past month than I did, and so go for it.
Okay, thank you. So we've met twice now with Holly. I'm so sorry, I can't remember her last name. Holly from the Erie Bird Conservancy,
I'm not best.
Conservatory.
Short.
Conservatory?
Isn't that terrible? I can't think.
Holly.
Holly.
Holly. She's fairly new. She's actually from Florida, and worked
Short.
for Short. She worked for the Audubon down in Florida, and she's come up here to work for the Erie Bird Conservancy. Sorry. So we had a really good initial discussion, also with Cooper Moore, our assistant planner, and Freda, and Mike was at the second one. We are planning to hold a meeting with certain businesses that have the most bird collisions from the data that they collected. So I think it was just in the last year, they have a map that shows where in the city of Erie the most birds were collected during that inventory. And we hope to hold a meeting in late summer, and it's very intentional. Holly suggested that we hold this before the fall migration. And each of us have sort of some tasks around this strategy. Mike is looking into, Mike, what were you were doing some research.
Looking for model success
Yes,
stories and
right.
trying to help connect with who would be a good contact in one of the entities.
Right, recognition programs. Holly was going to reach out to Cornell University, who was the team that came and presented for Lights Out Texas at the Trek Center, to ask if they could speak to us, and maybe in the next couple of weeks, to kind of just provide a little bit of technical assistance and guidance as to how to approach businesses and organization and institutions, especially institutions, big institutions, that how do we approach them, make it so that it's, that it's beneficial on both sides. And then we're also looking at, there was something else.
There's two that I know of, buildings in the downtown area that are going to have a lot of glass, and Holly's going to reach out to them.
Right, she's reaching out before the
Next
building is being built, right, as the, or, right, to talk,
Hopefully we can
to
get
discuss
them,
that.
but maybe to incorporate it into the, rather than an after
I
fit.
know there's one other thing I'm missing, but yes, that's all in the works. We're going to be drafting an email together. She's already had discussions with some of these organizations and businesses and institutions that have the most collisions at their site. She's been talking to some of them, not all of them. There are some contacts that we don't have yet, and I think it's going to be, some of them may be difficult to get to the table because, frankly, it might not be a priority of theirs. So that's where Cornell would be great to come in and, explain to us like how they actually were able to influence and get to the right person that has the ability to influence. So, there was one other thing I remember. I think Holly was going to look at contacting vendors, because at this meeting, not only do we want to educate and inform these businesses, but we also want to provide solutions. So she has samples already, but we asked that she reach out to vendors to get some costs associated with what kind of remediation that we could do. So that's where we're at. We have another meeting in a few weeks, and it's good progress. On top of that, I have a staff in the planning department that has gone out and done a signage inventory. She's almost complete. She's worked with the zoning officer because we do have zoning for signage, but she went out and looked with the zoning officer to look at good, relatively good signage, or best practice signage that complies with the zoning ordinance, but maybe is not the best design, and then those that are in non-compliance with zoning. So I'm hopeful that she'll present that to this board in the next time.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that's where we're at. Did I miss anything, Mike?
I would just add that I'm personally thrilled that Holly has
She's great.
taken, a lot of initiative to really do the things that we were hoping that we wouldn't have to do as members of the EAC. And I think that was the
No, she's a good leader in that respect, and has already made some good relationships in the community, and hopefully we'll have some models that the Blasco Library, Trek Center. We have some examples where their work. I know, but we have some examples of where window treatment at least has been.
Yeah, well, Blasco,
done.
it was a lucky accident that wasn't the intent.
But it solved a problem,
Yeah.
because it was for COVID. It was a COVID memorial, but it turned out to be an issue that there were birds colliding into that glass, and they ended up keeping.
Yeah, I don't know if they've done anything
decal.
on the north side or not. But.
Yeah. So, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Great. Up next, and Old business, upcoming events. Do we have any upcoming events?
Well, we do have the Historic Preservation Program event that I did invite the EAC to. That's tomorrow from 5 to 7 at the Erie Art Museum.
Everything's happening tomorrow.
Yeah, I know, there's a lot going on tomorrow. But if you can make it, even if it's, just for an hour from maybe 5:30 to 6:30, that's when our presentation will be. There's some very interesting things going on, and we're honoring the local designations. There's going to be a discussion about the successes of the program, and so if you can make it, that'd be great.
And after that event,
Yeah,
you could come to Erie Ale Works, who's having a fundraiser for the Art House from 5 until 8 p.m. So raise a beer and join us in fundraising. That would be great. And on Saturday, if you want to exert a little energy, you could come out to Mount St. Benedict Monastery on East Lake Road and pull out invasives. We have a whole section of English ivy. So starting at 10 a.m. and we will serve you lunch.
The goats won't eat the ivy?
Pardon?
The goats won't eat the ivy?
It's English ivy.
The goats won't eat the ivy?
Pardon?
Will the goats not eat the ivy?
No, they eat poison ivy. We have goats, but they're in the summer. They do the poison ivy and the multiflora rose. So we have a scout troop coming at 10 a.m., but we would like some other folks because it's a 220-yard stretch, 5 to 18 feet wide, depending on where you are.
Is the museum entrance free tomorrow for that event?
Yes.
And that's a nice event. I think I was to one about 2 or 3 years ago. But
There's also the update on the Bayfront Parkway.
Bayfront Parkway, I saw
From
that
3
today.
to 6, but it's an open house, so there's no presentation as far as I can tell, so you can just come whenever.
When was that?
Tomorrow, 3 to 6,
It's Central Bay, it's called Central Bayfront
Parkway Project, which may close.
City staff will be there. So my department will be there.
Gonna be fun for the tall ships.
If anyone's interested, the Mill Creek Township Zoning Hearing Board meets tonight at 6 o'clock. No.
For the LCAP update?
Does
is that where we're
any
at?
other events? All right, LCAP updates?
The LCAP, we need $50,000 to go out for an RFP. I requested permission from the administration to use the ARP, some of my ARP money that was designated for trees. I still have a very large amount of it. And so we requested to use 50,000 of that. I believe there's 390 left. And, but we're waiting to hear back on whether or not that's a possibility. There was concern about, since it was designated for trees, the local climate action plan isn't trees, but I submitted an argument of why they're directly related. Planting trees is the #1 easiest, cheapest, and fastest thing you can do to help slow climate change and protect the local environment. So I personally think it's an acceptable use of the funding, but we're still waiting to hear back on that. And we have a lot of the funding still to use, so. And that's another update that I have. I'm working on getting some hazardous tree removal projects out, plus also a lot of planting removal projects. Aaron's helping me with green work on the grant. We still have that DCNR grant where we have a lot of trees to plant. Over
200 to be exact.
Yeah. Isn't it even more than that?
Not for DCNR. No, 300.
Yeah, it's 300.
You have some and-
She has 200 and I have 100. So it's 300 trees.
And the contract is clear that it'll be done properly.
Yes.
Yes, this
I
time.
mean, yeah, I mean, they're always planted properly, but the problem that I have with my tree planting contractors is they don't like to remove the wire baskets or cut the ropes off the burlap balls. And then they end up can strangle the tree in the end. So we're making sure specifically it states that if you do not remove the baskets or cut off the ropes and wires, you will not be paid until it is done. So it's very specific this time. to try to enforce that. Also, as another update on the trees, for Arbor Day, the mayor planted a black gum, also known as a Tupelo tree, in East Perry Square this year. And we also, the Urban Forest Committee, had spent the day Saturday from 10 to 2 down at the Blasco Memorial Library, also giving out trees and providing education on trees, so that was a fun event. I don't have a number of how many baby tree seedlings we gave away, but we received those from Leaf and gave them away to folks who wanted trees. The Master Gardeners were also there, our county forester, Steve Leskowski. There was a lot of people who were there to celebrate trees for Arbor Day, so that was nice. It was part of the library's, was it an Earth Day extravaganza? That's what it was called. So our Earth Day is April 22nd. Arbor Day is always the Friday after, which this year was April 28th. I think they're close together.
What's
For
the
the
proper
26th.
way to ensure that the trees that we encounter that are overmulched get fixed? Who do we contact?
Well, whoever mulches them.
Well,
The
like all
issue-
the ones on State Street that I see.
State
In
Street-
the right of way, like by Pocket and stuff.
The trees that were planted as part of the street tree planting was a city project, and it's up to the engineers to enforce that it's done correctly.
But if it hasn't been, how do I who do I
You'd
tell?
have to call the city and complain to the engineering department that it needs to be done correctly. Because I also complained, but I don't have enforcement over the contractor because I don't pay the contractors. The engineering department pays the contractors, so they listen to the engineering department. And unfortunately, they didn't. The trees were planted too deep in the first section, so they're below grade this far, and then they're mulched that much high up on their trunk. So I personally don't think many of those trees are going to survive. The second batch haven't been planted yet, and I haven't seen the planting specs, so I don't know about the second project that's just
Are you
started.
going to look at them, with the planting specs?
I have to contact the engineering, well, the bureau, not the department, because we're all public works, but, and get involved with that, because we aren't to the planning part of that yet, so I have to look into that. It's on my list of things to do, Freda.
Sarah, is that, because those trees were just planted last year,
There's-
and the mulch just happened a couple weeks ago,
Well, they mulched it when they planted them.
Is
They've
it-
been too deep since the beginning.
since the beginning. So is it possible for us to call a meeting and we can
talk about
I
it.
mean, we can take some
I
photos?
mean, the problem is, honestly, the engineering department's
such a
very
waste of money.
short-handed, so they don't have people to help either. I mean, it's not
But we're
necessarily
wasting
their
money.
fault that it isn't done. They're very short-handed. I think there's 3 positions in engineering that
Right.
are empty, and 2 more engineers just left. So,
Well,
I mean, it's
but they're
difficult.
they're not the ones mulching. It's the contractor. So we need to somehow have somebody managing the contractor.
Well,
and
it's the
making sure-
engineers.
No,
If
I
the
understand.
requirements are not incorporated into the contract.
They were in the
won't
contract.
It won't happen.
They were in the contract,
My planting specs
Okay.
were in that contract.
so they weren't enforced.
But they were not
The
enforced.
inspector was not.
Because the engineering department was shorthanded, and the contractor wouldn't listen to me because I don't pay his bills. So it was an unfortunate situation.
And
That still has not been rectified.
last week, I pulled mulch away from a tree across from the federal courthouse, and it was already, the branch, the bole, is that the correct term? The bole is already experiencing some damage because of that.
And I don't know if the ropes were removed or the wire baskets because they're so deep under the ground, I can't see them, to know if those were taken off either on that project.
But if we're going to be doing lots of tree planting, it needs to happen right. It needs to
Yes,
happen.
it's always an issue because people naturally think you have to dig this big hole and put the tree down in it and then fill it up with dirt. But the proper way to plant a tree is the trunk flare, the root flare above where the trunk flares as it goes down into the roots. You want to see that. If you imagine a tree in your mind, you always see that little trunk flare going into the ground. If the tree looks like it's straight into the ground, it's too deep. And the problem is that the bark on the tree is the first defense a tree has against attack from diseases and bugs. It's like our skin. If you get a cut on your skin, germs get in there. If you leave a Band-Aid on your finger too long, what happens? It gets all moist and wrinkly, and eventually your skin would peel off. The same thing happens to the tree's bark. If the mulch is thrown up against the bark, it's all moist and gets soggy, and fungus grows, and bugs burrow in there, and then there's holes, and then germs and diseases. Plus, the tree can suffocate because the tree's roots are mostly within the top 12 to 6, even 6 to 18 inches of soil, and they need oxygen to survive, not just water. So when it's so down deep, it's in the compacted soil layer under all this other soil on top pressing down on it, there's no oxygen in the soil then. They're too far down deep. They need to be higher up. And eventually the trees die from that, except it takes a really long time for trees to die from that. It can take like 5 to 10 years, maybe longer. And the thing is, it's like that old saying, like, if you cut a tree down in the forest, does anybody hear it fall? Well, what if they screamed really, really super loud every time you cut them? I mean, people don't know the trees are being hurt because there's no signs for 10 years. It just slowly starts to, one branch dies and then 3 branches, and they're like, what's wrong with my tree? It doesn't look healthy. Well, it was planted too deep 5 years ago. You know what I mean? It's just, it's hard to catch. And so that's why it's important to enforce it when we know, but it's just difficult because everybody's so short-handed. Everybody's been short-handed.
We should have her interviewed by the TV people.
I get interviewed all the time. I have enough interviews.
But not with this one.
And anyway, for Tire and Electronic Recycling Day, my last update, I just wanted to say we had 885 vehicles come through this year, which was a huge amount of vehicles. Last year we had 752, and in 2023 we had 857. So it was a kind of a dreary day. It rained a lot, so I think nobody had anything else to do because it was too cold and rainy, so everybody came out for our event, so it was really great. I won't have the numbers of how much we recycled, but it was a lot of tires and a lot of electronics got taken away to be recycled as much as possible and then disposed of properly, because there are hazardous materials in the electronics, so it's not just about recycling the precious metals, it's about removing the radioactive materials, like there's uranium and other radioactive materials in electronics, and those need to be disposed of properly so they don't get into our waterways and soils. So it's a really good program that we offer to our citizens free of charge every year.
And under pressure by me, Sarah investigated what happens, because I'd heard about where they get burned in pits in third world countries, and that's not what happens here, right?
No, all of our vendor is certified, and all of the material is recycled within the United States and Canada, and they all have all their certificates of how they're disposed of properly and what sites all the materials are taken to. So none of them are shipped off to overseas to countries with less regulations. They're all heavily regulated and disposed of properly.
Yeah, thank you,
You're
Sarah.
welcome.
That was C&D, E, Department of Planning and Neighborhood Resources updates.
Great. So as I mentioned, I believe at our last meeting, we had our kickoff for the Erie Comprehensive Recreation Parks and Open Space Plan that we have now branded to Erie Outside. Play, explore, and belong. It's not official yet, but I'm showing you all.
It's the one I like too.
Yeah. So we had our kickoff in April. We are embarking right now on these next couple of months on the engagement piece of this project, very large engagement piece of this project. So at this moment, actually in the next one second. I will pass them. In the next 9 days, we are going to try to have this survey sent. We're already working with the community school directors. We're trying to get input from our youth. And the best way to do that is at the school and get it back, because we know that we ask a lot of our community all the time, and we ask a lot of surveying all the time. But this is a little bit different because it's for them, directly benefiting them, and I'll pass these around. These are going to be sent out to the schools next week. The community schools, they're going to help us have the children, the students take the survey in the school, and then we'll get the input back. That's just our first initial thing. This flyer was done by our consultants, and then we have a QR code on here that you can take online. It's directed to our project site on the city's website. We also have, for the younger children or students, we have a coloring page that says, blank is my favorite Erie Park. At my park, I like to. I wish my park had. My dream park looks like. And my 8-year-old took this, and she put a big pool, and she put trails, and she took this survey also. She's 8. And so, this was very simple for her, and she actually even filled in, the other, so on there.
Yeah, don't you like it says I have a different idea instead of other? I thought that was cute.
We are happy to, we're going to be all over the city, but with pop-ups and having big boards and markers, and we're going to be all over the city. Our entire team is going to be working on this throughout the summer. But if you would like us to come to the Art House,
I was going to say, our summer programs.
yeah, or even come to Asbury Woods, or
Charter schools.
come down to Glasgow. I mean, we'd be happy to present have a little presentation to the youth or to adults. I mean, we'll be ready to reach out to everyone throughout the city. At the moment, we are just printing these for the school, but materials you'll be able to receive at the city if you need materials from us. We may have something like a toolbox eventually, like a toolkit that we could hand out to organizations and they could conduct their own engagement. We haven't gotten that far yet. We're still working on the youth at the moment in the school district. So it's exciting. Things are moving
What's your
along.
timeline? Like, how long are you planning to
Do engagement?
do this surveys? Yeah.
Well, this survey is 9 days. We're gonna. I mean, we're
Before school lets out.
We're targeting at the moment the Erie School District students. The youth survey could be up for a couple weeks,
So what about
or even throughout the summer. I mean, we don't have a time frame
You don't have a time.
necessarily.
Okay.
This survey is geared to the youth. We plan to have another maybe community survey up on the website, but honestly, we're really focused on doing a lot more pop-ups, because having the workshops, having the community events, we're finding that people are tired of those. And if we can be at other events and piggyback on the 814 concerts, piggyback on all of the other things going on in the city of Erie, that we will meet the people where they're at. So that's our strategy at the moment. Yeah.
What about the Catholics, the non-public schools and the charter schools and the cyber?
Yeah, at this moment, we're only focused on the community schools, but we plan to still do some engagement throughout the summer with youth. We're not finished. This is just one part of it. And our engagement piece really runs through the end of September. At that time, then we're going to move into another phase of the project. So this piece is going to be like 4 months that we're going to be working on engagement.
I hope you also talk about access for people.
That is very much at the forefront, Freda, yes.
So what
Absolutely.
did your daughter think of the survey?
I didn't ask her yet. I didn't say, like, what did you think? I didn't ask her. It just was simple enough for her to read and take, and then she had her own ideas, which I thought was good. Like, it obviously made her think, oh, what else do I want? So, I'll ask her, though, what she thought.
I'm interested.
I don't know if I want to know. So that's the biggest thing at the moment that I just wanted to update you on. So that's all I have, Matt.
All right. Anything else? Seeing none, to have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn at
Second.
exactly
We're not in
4:15.
session till the third week.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? So moved.